I grew up Catholic. Since I can remember, I never truly understood it or embraced it. I went to church, I took religion classes, I prayed, asking to feel the connection I needed to believe in something. But there was always something else. Something I felt more drawn to. Something older. Something unknown. And yet, in a way, familiar. I've only read about paganism before, despite my strong interest in some of its parts. I know my gods and myths well. But I've always wondered, is there more to it? Where I'm from, there used to be an obvious solution for people in need of some spiritual guidance. Ask a priest about it. And so, I've decided to seek out some experts in two beliefs which for years seem to have been fighting for my attention. The goal being to, maybe, finally, figure it all out. As I prepared myself for the interviews, I found my mind filled with questions, each one seemingly more important than the last. However, I thought it best to start with basics.
Well, my name's Reverend Chris Taylor. I'm a retired Anglican priest, and I used to be the Anglican chaplain at Loughborough University.
When I say paganism, what is the first thing that comes into your mind?
That's a really interesting one, because I was thinking about it earlier on today. And I was really thinking around the idea of Romans and Greeks and the sort of gods that the Romans and the Greeks worshipped. And so it's for me, paganism is choosing to worship gods other than the single divine God, and I would exclude Hinduism.
I'm Tatiana Gomez, a sociologist. I just recently graduated. I focused throughout my sociology degree on sociology of religion, and now I'm going to follow through with a master's in ancient cultures, and I'm a pagan. So paganism originates from around the time of the Roman Empire, and it's about people who practice beliefs of polytheistic origins, which believing in many gods, and it's outside of the Abrahamic beliefs, so anything that's mainly related to nature. We're not like Christianity in the sense that we don't have houses of worship like the churches, because we're not a community type base. We do have covens, but I'm not particularly in a coven. I would like to, but I'm not. Yeah.
After the initial introductions, it was time to inquire a bit further, as I tried to understand what exactly does paganism practice entail, what's its significance to its followers, as well as how others might perceive it.
So paganism to me means still very much connected to nature, as I try to make that as connected to nature as much as possible. However, I still have like limitations because we're in different times. I focus mainly on the practice around many beliefs and many gods, and how each of the sides of paganism connect to me and how I feel comfortable carrying out my beliefs. The more we started doing research, the more we started to understand that our organism entails a lot with what nature is. So the cycles of the moons and the cycles of nature of like death and rebirth and like coming to the peak of who you are and just going this continuous cycle of rebirth. I mainly work with demonology as well, which is working with demons. So the Goetia demons, the Ars Goetia demons, and like the Hellenistic gods. I'm happy to look at mysticism and paganism and witchcraft to justify things I can't understand, and I have fully accepted it's way beyond my comprehension. I love the fact that as a scientist, I can't justify a lot of things. I don't know why a lot of things happen, like how did humans develop a conscience? Like, why? That's weird. But like how religion also has like this mysticism around us. So I think paganism the way we touch into both of those topics and we try to find a reason for them that's outside of those two boxes is really interesting for me.
My general opinion about it is that it's not as good as what I do, but I don't think that it's that far removed from an understanding of a creator God who is present in all things that have been created. I see difference in emphasis and I see difference in practice, but actually if it's a God of creation and earth and rock and sea and wind, that's not dissimilar. And I think there is something probably, for instance, in astrology. And whatever it is, I think it's probably harmless. I think it's something to do with the heavens. I think it's something to do with the tides, stars, and all that sort of stuff. I have no idea how it works. I think that I'm much more of the view that if you worship God in a particular way and that you are absolutely faithful in your worship, however that is, whichever expression of God that is, then you can't fail but be living a life that is pleasing to God.
As my time with the interviewees drew near to the end, I realized that I have only touched the very surface of this topic. I found myself agreeing with my own need to understand the unexplainable, to explore things beyond my comprehension, and perhaps accept the belief system as one of the ways to justify them. But before I did, I had to touch on a subject I could not leave unmentioned. You work with demons, Goetia demons. To my knowledge, that's specifically from the Bible, is it not?
Not necessarily. So all of these demons and concepts already existed before the Bible was written by men. Working with demons and like trying to justify things that we don't understand, it's very much a typical human thing that we've been doing for millennia amongst many religions and many practices. But now we associate demons with the dark side of the main six. To us, they're just entities that we need to respect. From a spiritual perspective as well, they're just there. It's also like mediatized why we associate demons with evil, because it sells. It's an easy way to explain the world.
If there was someone who called it just purely evil, what would your response be to that?
I'm okay with that.
There's a whole edge to paganism that gets confused with my friends who are looking at earth worship, if you like. And that's the occult, and that is a very, very dark side. I don't know very much about it, but my understanding of it is that if you start from the position of self-interest at the expense of others, and death has something to do with it as well, then I think that's probably, no, I think it is just evil.
Conversations with Tatiana and Chris have been a heartwarming experience. I have felt very safe to ask and question, which allowed me to put a more definite pin on what my own spirituality means to me. There is something in religion that resonates deeply within me. Perhaps it's the feeling of safety it offers, something to fall back on when you need courage, the sense of the divine, of something greater being out there. I do see value in paganism's praise of nature and the connection to the past it might offer. There's something compelling about honoring the cycles of the earth and the freedom in the way you want to practice it. It feels right for me. However, at the same time, I don't think I could ever accept the concept of demons as neutral beings rather than inherently evil entities. Stepping away from the faith I was raised in has been challenging. I often find myself looking back at it, viewing things through its lenses. That's why I felt the need to inquire with a pastor before further exploring paganism. But there was one piece of wisdom from Chris that stuck with me throughout this process.
I don't know, I can't make a comment, but what I can do is I can refer you to Hamlet, when I think it's Hamlet who says to Laertes, there are more things in heaven and on earth, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. And therefore, I would never say, that ain't so, and I'd rarely go, there's no such thing as ghosts. So if they tell me that something has happened to them that's made a huge difference to their lives, or something weird happened that completely changed their life's direction for the good, then I would go, great. When I was at college, I mean, this is about world religions, and I guess you could plonk paganism in there, maybe, and it was the idea that all the world's great faiths are lifeboats that God has set on the ocean of our lives to help us on our journeys.
I agree with the idea that if your practice is something that brings you peace, fulfillment, and a sense of connection, so long as it harms no one, then it's a worthy path. It's about finding what feels right and true to oneself. As for me, this short documentary is just the beginning of a journey, and we will have to see where it might lead.